So Radio Benue was a state-owned radio station. It's a state-owned radio station. Imagine if we were reporting a story, if we were important enough to report on a story that didn't have to do with corruption or whatever, that the BBC could pick up. So imagine somebody at the BBC recording our story, recording our news bulletin and reporting it. Sounds far-fetched? It happens today, So at the BBC, we look at ourselves as the biggest news organization in the world, which we probably are, but I don't know what that means anymore. In the sense that now, increasingly, we are depending on people like you to tell the stories. Now, Stephen alluded to something earlier on that, that really, really touched me, because that's all I'm about. If you don't tell your story, somebody will tell it differently. Somebody else will tell it, and they won't tell the story the way it should be told. So he talked about the fact that, corruption, war, disasters, thefts, that's all that goes into the international media. It has a point, and I'm guilty of that as well. But what we're trying to move away from that to get us to tell our own stories. Now, the only way for you to tell your story is for you to tell it well enough for BBC, CNN, Ghana TV, Namibia TV, SABC South Africa to pick up on it and say, okay, this guy has done a really good job on this story, and I think he's right, and we're going to tell it like this. We have to tell our stories, and the only way we can tell our stories is by collaborating with other people. I find it strange sometimes when we've got a whole Africa service, BBC Africa, we've got Hausa, BBC Hausa, BBC Swahili, BBC Somali, whole range of languages, Great Lakes, and all that. But then if a story breaks in Rwanda, for instance, they'll go and bring their special BBC Africa correspondent, who is a Briton, has probably been to Rwanda 3 or 4 times. Now, I've worked for the BBC in London for 14 years. Nobody has ever asked me to come and be a special expert on parliamentary issues in the UK, because it's not my story to tell. You've got enough people who are going to tell that story. So why are you getting other people to tell our story? I think it's because we are not putting ourselves in that space. And since we started putting ourselves in that space, I think the BBC has actually recognized that, it doesn't matter where you're from. You could be, from Africa, from Asia, from South America. You tell your story better. So that's why it's important for us to be in this collaborative space. You're wondering, why should I be talking to Babita Sharma, for instance, who is on BBC World News? You don't know anything about her. You're already scared of her. You're already like, oh, she's up there. She has a good job. Why should she listen to me? I'll tell you a little secret, which Stephen also alluded to. We're not well paid. So we're not up there. We're actually down here. So you can reach us. You can talk to us. We're available. We won't actually hear your story. But the only way for me to agree that you tell that story well is for me to see a balanced story that you have told. If you tell a one-sided story, then don't get me wrong, there are news organizations in the world that will take a non-balanced story. So we're seeing that in the present polity in America. So you've got one side that is right wing, one side that is left wing. So they will take your story. But if you want that integrity that I spoke about earlier on, you've got to tell a balanced story. Collaborations can exist. They are beneficial to all of us. They're very important to all of us. But for us to make them work, and I keep on going back, and maybe that's what I should have been talking about today. It's integrity. If you do not have integrity, nobody's going to respect you for anything that you do.